Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show. You guys know my story. I started my career in politics and as a lawyer. I'm a recovering lawyer today. I worked for many years in the Clinton White House and for a California governor, spent many years practicing law. And, in 2010, I discovered this medium, what we're doing right now, which is recording a podcast. I've been doing it ever since because I get to talk to smart entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders, like my guest today. And we're going to have a great discussion about some of the challenges that service professionals have in moving from a service profession into something that's more scalable, like creating a software solution. I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help B2B businesses with the strategy and production they need to create a podcast that produces tremendous ROI and connects them with their ideal prospects and referral partners. And so my guest today, his name is Samuel P.N. Cook. He is the founder of Sanity Desk, which is a software solution for experts and small service businesses to launch and manage their business online, which is incredibly important today, especially in these post-COVID times we live in. It was funded by angel investors and rapidly becoming an innovative solution for savvy marketing professionals who help small business owners to grow their brand online. He also founded James Cook Media in 2013 after leaving the Army, James Cook Media is a storytelling marketing agency that focuses on growing brands of authors and experts around the world. And he also is a graduate of West Point, graduated in 2000, and served abroad in Iraq. And also, he also went back to teach at West Point. So thank you, sir, for your service, of course. Really appreciate that. Now, before we get into this interview, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25 Media. Rise 25 helps B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. If you want to learn more, you can go to rise25media.com. You also email us at support@rise25media.com. All right. So, Samuel, I love your story. You got a deep career in the military, and then you go and you start a media company, which is kind of a bit of a shift. How did that come about? How did you end up going from teaching at West Point to founding the James Cook Media? And also tell the story about how it got its name, because I love that. You told me that story privately another time.
Yeah, so James Cook Media was founded actually right after I left the Army. I hired my little brother named James. He was employee number 0 because I didn't pay him, but he was recovering from some mental health issues and some other things that were troubling him. And it was a way to give him something to do as he was trying to figure out what was next in his life. As he was trying to figure out what was next in his life. And then, unfortunately, I was, right before I left the Army, he passed away due to some complications with some mental health drugs he was on. And he became the name of the company. And it's a cool name for many reasons, not just because James and I were very close, but my nephew's name, James Cook, was kind of the Elon Musk of the Enlightenment, discovering all of the places around the world that had yet to been discovered, Hawaii, and mapped out the coast of Australia and New Zealand and all kinds of islands in the Pacific. So he was kind of a famous explorer, adventurer, in the mold of Elon Musk at that time. So I just love the theme of the logo, exploring kind of the ocean of knowledge out there, the infinite amount of knowledge out there that we'll never quite wrap our heads around. So that's where the story came from. That's where James Cook Media came from. And great to be on your podcast, John.
And how did you go from, leading troops in a battle and then, teaching at West Point to a storytelling marketing agency? Was there something that came from your military career that led you into that, or was it something you'd always been curious or interested in?
Well, it's interesting. I actually explore this in my own podcast in episode, I think 1 of season 2 of my podcast. I call it the Mentor Series, and in it, I'm dissecting. I interview all of my mentors in my life that had a big impact in it, and I was dissecting why did I get into media. That is a strange story, if it were to go from Army to teaching history to media, but for me, it always made sense because back in 2004, when I was in Iraq, to relieve stress, I was the regimental adjutant for General McMaster, who retired as the National Security Advisor. I was his adjutant as a colonel. And somehow at night, after all the stress of the casualties and the different things that we were going through, I went and created a documentary film for our regiment, the 3rd Cavalry Regiment, by gathering all the footage from the soldiers who'd taken it on their combat cameras and helmet cams and everything else. And then I also created posters and T-shirts and paid out of my own pocket on my credit card for a web store to sell all this stuff for the benefit of the Regimental Association. So in some way, I realized early on that I just had this weird curiosity with the web. At that point, it was very new. Then in 2007 and 8, when I deployed to Iraq again, before Facebook was a thing, let's say widespread, I built a website and a blog platform to communicate with the families of the soldiers whom I was commanding in Iraq. And then in 2008, when I redeployed from Iraq and went to New York University as a history student and as a full-time Army salary recipient, I was bored to tears, wondering why I didn't have to work 180 hours a week. So I managed to create that, let's call it tempo again in my life, by starting a tour company. And I became fascinated when I started that tour company in New York City with the web aspect of it. So I guess I moonlighted for a few years in the Army as a business owner. Once I realized that I didn't really like tourism as much as I liked the website part of it, I decided I should start building websites for people, again, doing my day job as a history professor. So I like to say that I just realized what I wanted to be when I grew up a little bit late. And I think most people probably spend their 20s and probably 30s working for the man, as I call it, doing something for someone else, building other people's dreams, working as a corporate slave, I guess, and then finally deciding what you want to do when you grew up. So for me, it was in my early 30s, and I said, hey, I want to go help experts and authors tell their stories online and get clients. And I became a media agency focused on experts and authors. And when that started to work, I decided to leave the Army. So just took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And the Army was a wonderful place to learn a lot about myself and get to see the world and get ready for the big adventure that I'm on right now.
I'm sure you have amazing stories to tell about being in the Army, being in battle, leading troops into battle. Does that inform the stories you told or have told for your clients? In other words, having lived those stories, do you think that helps you tell better stories?
Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, I remember General McMaster, who just wrote the book Battlegrounds, was one of the best storytellers I've ever seen. And one of the things I realized when I was in Iraq was, he convinced a lot of people that we were fighting to put down their arms and join us. And one of the things I realized was war was an argument that was a battle of stories. And the narrative of the Islamic State was, the Americans are heathen infidels, and we need to go back to the 13th century and live like the Prophet Muhammad did, and have all these draconian, drastic rules. And the American story that won the day at that point, and has since won again when the Islamic State got defeated again, was, hey, that Islam is not destined to be stuck in the 13th century. There's a modern progressive way to be. You can control your own destiny. We're not here to stay forever in Iraq. We want to leave just as badly as you want us to leave. We're sorry we screwed it up, which was a key admission that General McMaster made to the locals. And we're here to help you take control of your own destiny. And so I watched arguments play out at a very high level where lives were at stake. So for me, when you're in business, you're telling a story, and the only reason people will invest in your product or service is when you inspire people that a better future in their life is possible. And in Iraq, that better future was either, two very bad choices: Americans staying here, or going back to some medieval form of living. And we had to present that third way, which is we want to leave. And you need to help us leave by taking control of your own destiny and grow your own modern, traditional Islamic society in your own way. And that was eye-opening to me, to the power that stories hold in lives. I mean, stories literally, and I've seen this, make people kill. Stories will make people strap on a suicide vest and blow themselves up. There's nothing more powerful and dangerous, I would say, than a story. Nothing more powerful for good, and nothing more dangerous for the stability of society, a country, its democracy, whatever you think. Stories can be very powerful and very destructive, and I think we all see that.
I'm always interested to hear when people make courageous decisions in big pivots in their career. And for you, 2008, you were getting your master's in Russian and Ukrainian history at NYU. You had a successful military career so far. Maybe you would have followed in the footsteps of, General McMaster, maybe gone into the higher levels of the military, and you make this major pivot. What was that like when you went to your family, your friends, and said, "Hey guys, I'm making this major change," and you become an entrepreneur? No doubt, I'm sure there are some people who questioned why you were doing that.
Yeah, well, here's the one thing that I realized when I left the Army in 2000, or when I left Iraq in 2008, was, two things really struck me. Were one, I thought at the time, and I don't think that's true anymore, but I thought at the time, I'm never going to do anything this important again, which was somewhat depressing, which drove me to a little bit of manic entrepreneurial heights here. But the other thing I realized was, and this was reinforced when my brother passed away. One of the things General McMaster always used to say, and I helped him write the speeches for the casualties when they got killed, and it was extraordinarily tough to do memorial service after memorial service, was, hey, let us live a life that let us live our lives in a way that their sacrifice is not in vain. And for me, when my brother passed away, it became way more personal than even those colleagues or comrades that I lost, just because of the sheer, when you lose someone close, it's just an incredible kind of black hole that just enters your life and your soul. I swore to myself, I am going to make every day count. And when I realized, as soon as I realized at NYU, when I was studying history, that I no longer had the passion for the Army anymore, that I discovered this thing called entrepreneurship that was, I think, even more aligned with my skill set. Because in the Army, I was successful at times, but at other times when I was a staff officer making PowerPoint slides, I wasn't very good at certain tasks. I was a well-accomplished commander in Iraq, but I realized that, this isn't my path. And as much as any other people I know would want me to continue, that it wasn't my path. And seeing people, friends of mine, colleagues, other commanders that I knew get cut down at the prime of their life and not having the opportunity to continue, just really, I just swore to myself I would never ever waste this. I felt like it was a second chance at life after 2 tours in Iraq, couple of close calls personally, and obviously losing friends and comrades And then, right before I left the Army, my brother passing away. I've always lived a life since then that was, you've got to be true to yourself, your path, your vision for your life, what you're passionate about. And as soon as you find yourself misaligned, you got to get back on path, or you're not going to be happy. The toughest times of my life have always been where I just was not doing what I loved anymore. Even when other people were proud of me, saying thank you for your service, so you've got great potential. That's not enough if you're not doing it for yourself.
Yeah, and no doubt what you just described has been instrumental in the decision that you made to not just stay down the path of the marketing agency, but to launch a whole new platform, which is Sanity Desk. So how did that come about? How did you decide to, throw, and now at this point, I think it's $1.5 million or something that you've either invested of your own money or raised. So it's a significant sum.
Yeah, so Sanity Desk was an internal project that I started back in 2015. I had just moved to Poland after traveling the world for a year after my brother passed away. I worked remotely from a laptop, traveled the world a few times, met my now business partner, Tyrone, in the Philippines, who was one of my first employees, and had a book of clients, and they were coaches, experts, and authors. And when I got to Poland, I realized that there's huge amount of developer talent in this part of the world, and I taught Russian and Ukrainian history, and Poland was once part of the part of it was part of the Russian Empire, and it was divided amongst three powers actually. And I really had an affinity for and a good experience living among people about whom I'd studied in terms of historical knowledge. And there were a lot of Ukrainians in Poland, and Ukrainians were the subject of my master's thesis at New York University, the Ukraine conquest of Crimea by the Russian Empire and Ukraine. And it was just a really fascinating experience to set up in that part of the world. And what I realized was, hey, the problems that experts and authors have, it's not just getting their marketing message out there, but they're spending a ton of money on their tech. And I would have to make these wrenching decisions to recommend to authors to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on HubSpot, and then 6 other pieces of software, and before you know it, they're spending $5,000+ a month, which is an enormous amount of money. Even if you're making 6 figures or more, it's a huge tax on your business. Or what I started to do is I just started to build tools that they needed. I started building a quiz and a page builder while I was in Krakow. That business ended up not working out. I went under, which was originally called James Cook Publishing. I restarted as a pure media agency called James Cook Media. But I just kept building out this technology naively at that time, saying, well, if I just spend a little bit more money, I'm going to save myself all this money on software. And $700,000 or $600,000 into spending all the money I had on the software last year, I realized, I'm going to run out of money, and I'm not going to be able to take this product to market. And now's the time. I just started to see all of these, things coming together, and the fact that, this frustration amongst experts and consultants and solopreneurs around the world was building with the complexity and the cost of tech. So I started raising money in August of 2019. And since then, we've raised, between my company putting in another 100,000 and from outside angels, we've raised $1.4 million now. We've closed our pre-seed round. Officially, it's oversubscribed by $50,000, and we're actually probably going to take in before the end of the year maybe another couple $100,000, and we'll have basically raised enough money to get us through our closed beta period, where we're going to build out the world's best onboarding experience for a new business owner. Literally, when you come in the software, we don't just help you set up your technology, but we help you map out your website, choose the photos, actually write the copy we provide as part of the onboarding. We'll just get your 4-page site up with you. And one of the reasons we do that is I've been noticing as we've been onboarding new clients, the hard part about writing copy. So we're helping people push through that as part of their onboarding experience. So that's the next year ahead of us is going through this closed beta period, really making our first 1,000 customers love us, give us great feedback on the tech, stabilize, get it ready for scalability, and then go to a much bigger raise and launch of the product on the market.
And what has it been like operating? We're recording this in November of 2020, so 6 months, 7 months into the pandemic. What was that like when the pandemic hit and you were 6 months or so into raising money?
Well, at that point, needless to say, the lead investor I'd been counting on was not able to keep funding us. So I thought for a moment there, I thought we were going to have to shut down the company or go down to just me and my co-founder and lay off most of the team. But I had been courting for a while a new investor, and he was about to come in for probably about a large amount. He was looking at becoming our lead investor, putting in a couple $100,000. And then I just started watching this slow motion train wreck come. It was COVID, and it just, things just started shutting down in Europe, and then we knew it was coming to America. And it was the day I was going to get the decision from him, hey, are you going to invest? And he said, I was going to get this house sold in London, and it didn't happen. So I can't be the lead investor and put in that large sum. I was thinking, and you were thinking I could, but I will put in, $50K if you find some other investors. So I was, going around beating the bush, and eventually we figured out with the stimulus money that was coming out and some other things that we could get a little bit of gas in the tank. And if we cut our payroll, we would be able to get the 6 month runway he wanted us to get before he put his money in. And he said, okay, well, all right, I'll match the government money if you guys cut your wages. And then his brother decided to come in, and his brother put in another 50,000, and they said, okay, let's not cut payroll. And then, we got through the summer period. And then as we got towards, formed a board and got an advisory board together, and they saw the progress. His family fund actually just came in and helped us close out the round, and a couple other members of his family came in. So it's been a phenomenal
good family to know.
Well, you know what? They're a wonderful investment family. The father of the family is a very famous technologist from the UK. They have a family fund. And yeah, they're all investors, and not only investors, but just wonderful, high consciousness, well-intentioned people who really are looking to make the world a better place. And what drew them to our product is it's very clear to everyone that the solo operators, the consultants, the experts have been left behind by the SaaS market. No one seems to care about their problems because, as one investor told me in Silicon Valley, hey, no one likes dealing with small business owners because they're cheap and they churn. They quit a lot, and they don't have stable income source. So who wants to invest in that? And to me, that's not a great reason to not build a product for them. It's a great reason to get creative about what is their true problem that causes them to churn and to be unstable, and how do we solve that at a very core level with technology that meets their needs? Because there's a huge need there. It's just, okay, well, if a traditional investor doesn't want to fund it, then let's get the right ones. And we found, a group of people that really believe in solving this problem. Because, in COVID, the thing that we've learned is, even though we hadn't sold anything until February and started selling during the pandemic, is everyone needs to get their business online. They need a respectable storefront, website. They need their marketing automation, their sales CRM. They need all these things set up, and most people don't even know they need all this, right? And right. There's a huge education curve that goes for new business owners. Okay, what does it take to be successful online? What's the strategy? What's the blueprint? What's the tech? And how do we put all that together? And it's a huge gap in the market, and we're really having a fun time.
Yeah. And what you've just described is so comprehensive, because there's an education gap. So it's kind of teaching and training them what they need to do. What I find, having been through that same scenario myself, having practiced law for many years, to building many online tools, websites, stuff like that. That it's learning how to do it, learning how to understand how to use the tools themselves. How do you decide on which pieces to tackle first? No doubt, I'm sure you've got this huge vision, but there's only so much you can tackle with your resources in particular order. How did you decide?
Well, prioritization of your roadmap, as they call it in software development, is the greatest discipline and skill that you need to learn as a founder. And frankly, I don't think I figured that out until recently by getting great mentors from my board, my investors and board. And really what it comes down to is, who are your first 1,000 customers going to be? Okay. I could build, online shopping carts for physical products. I could build all kinds of advanced tools that I would personally love. And we've designed some analytics dashboards and some advanced email functionalities that I personally would love because I'm a very advanced user. But what I've been forced to do in this product is, what is our beachhead into the market? And our beachhead into the market is what I call the tech virgins, or the tech, the new technologists who are in their 40s and 50s, who've worked not in the technology industry and been working corporations or other jobs, have a huge amount of value and knowledge to pass on to the world, to the next generation, through coaching and consulting, but they've been left behind by the tech landscape. And frankly, what does a brand new business owner who's got time that they can sell that's valuable, eventually you may want to scale that with an online course, what do they need? And that's what we've built. And whenever a new feature or a bright, shiny object or good idea comes to me, it's like, does that serve the first 1,000 people that we want to have on the platform, which is a brand new, so if you've got a website that you're afraid to show to anyone and like you just rather didn't exist, that's one of our clients. And if you don't even have a website, that's also our if you're an expert author coach who has nothing that you're proud of or nothing at all, that's who we love to help. And we think about, well, what features do they need? And really, I could develop all kinds of features that they could use eventually, but it's like, we're putting all of our resources right now into the user experience when they first join, which is education, blueprint, copyright. How do you choose the right images and copy? Basic stuff that most websites get wrong.
It's so funny. I'm sure you experienced this, but a lot of times people are like, "Oh, I need a webinar," or "I need some advanced thing like that." They want to build a quiz or something like that, and then you ask them, "So cool, okay, can I check out your website?" And they're like, "Oh no, I don't want to show you my website." It's like, that's what we need to work on, right? That's what we need to work on.
Well, here's the thing about a website is, people are like, well, why do you need a website these days? You can just build a Facebook page, you can build a LinkedIn page. You know what? You don't own those platforms, and you become a digital sharecropper, as I call it, for Mark Zuckerberg and the owners at LinkedIn and Microsoft, and you're building up their real estate rather than your own. And if you're not proud of your website and someone can't go there and know they're in the right place, which is the job of your homepage. What problem do you solve? How do you solve it? For who? Okay. B, understand who you are, where you're coming from, what's your story, what's your background, what qualifies you to help them solve that problem. And then C, a clear description of all your products or services and how to get in touch with you to speak to you about all your products and services, or buy online if that's the mode in which you're operating. You don't have a website. Those are 3 pages that almost everyone has no clue how to do. And I didn't. I'm embarrassed to say I was a marketing agency owner until two and a half years ago. I didn't have my own website because I would have rather not had a website than had one that wasn't well thought through. And then I finally taught myself how to do it. And I've been building the SaaS platform. I coach business owners every day. So I'm seeing every single day new problems and how to communicate it. So, but it's really a dare I say, borrow from the current words, an epidemic or pandemic, bad websites out there, no websites that don't work. So yeah, we're focused on giving people a nice, healthy tech stack, tech experience, so that, I call it your tech life. You don't want to spend a lot of time on it because it's, you got other things to do. You got to go out and work with your clients, but you got to have a healthy, secure, stable tech life, as I say.
And that's a great point, because people will waste time essentially by spending all their time twiddling away on their tech or fixing a banner on their website. I was guilty of that early on, for sure. I would spend a bunch of time on that. That's not the highest and best use of your time, for sure. Two more questions I want to wrap up with, Samuel, before we run out of time here. So I'm a big fan of gratitude. When you look at your peers, others in your industry, who do you admire and respect? In other words, are there other companies or other individuals who kind of blaze the path like you, going from service to creating a software solution that you look to and you admire?
I would say that, I've looked at Clay Collins from Lead Pages, the founder of Lead Pages. Really, I used his tool, and I really respected the way he communicated the benefits of his platform as I became a user, and I've definitely followed in his wake, especially on the page building side. Russell Brunson of ClickFunnels has definitely been a great thought leader in marketing education, and has built a great page builder also, which is kind of in the tradition of Clay Collins. Brian Halligan, the founder of HubSpot. I mean, HubSpot was the original kind of all-in-one tool for small businesses. They've really kind of gone up market. They're bumping into some, Salesforce territory, and they've really, I think, left the small business owner market behind. But yeah, I mean, look, I've benefited enormously from and followed in the footsteps of some SaaS pioneers. And the great thing about coming after them is being able to see the gaps and, all the things that they've done, how their successes, some of the things I think they left out, and then the gaps that are left in the market, and just trying to tie it all up into a tidy, easy to understand and manage technological, and not just technological, but business launch and management solution for new entrepreneurs. Because setting up your business online is like, hiring a contractor and an architect, and really trusting them to help you build that out. And that's what we want to be for people.
Yeah. And then last question. So let's pretend we're at an awards banquet like the Oscars or the Emmys. You're receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award for everything you've done up until this point. And what we want to know is, who do you think? Who are the colleagues? Who are the friends? Who are the mentors? Who are the coaches? Who are the military leaders that you served under? Who are the people that you would acknowledge in your remarks?
Well, look, first of all, I was blessed to have great parents, and I'd have to definitely acknowledge, my dad was a history teacher. My mother was, just retired and actually still teaches in a retirement, French and Spanish. Just a passion for education, I think, came from my parents, and a passion for learning, reading books, and just loving the profession of teaching, I think comes from my parents first and foremost. My professor at West Point, Chris Kalenda, who was my favorite history teacher and made me want to be a history teacher when I grew up. People like him and Kevin Farrell and some of the great history teachers I learned from at West Point. And then, in my Army career, General McMaster, who was my commander in my first tour in Iraq in the Battle of Talafar, went on to become National Security Advisor. I'll never forget him when I wanted to leave the Army actually saying, "Hey, I support you, whatever you want to do. Just give me that freedom and space to leave when it wasn't right for me." I mean, actually, when he told me that, I ended up staying for another 7 years and then got out. But just knowing
it worked
that
then, whatever he said.
Yeah, he said, "Hey, I value your decision. I respect it. I'm not going to tell you either way which is right, but." He did say that if he went back to Iraq the second time as a commander, that, I'd never have an experience like that again in my life. And he was right in many ways. I mean, as hard as running a tech startup is, it's not as hard as some of those days in Iraq. And my commander, my second tour, Thomas Dorme, who was, I managed to convince to invest in this company, and he's now on my board of directors. And then just recently in the world of business, Shandor, who became our lead investor, and his family, and the mentorship and their thought leadership around the idea of conscious capitalism and in a business, all stakeholders being well served, from your customers to your team members to your local community to the world, the governments even that benefit you and your company, even though you may hate your government sometimes, they do provide the peace and freedom and economic stability and talent pool from which we draw. And I have to think back to my days in Iraq and be very thankful for the Ukrainian ecosystem that I'm in right now with my dev team and find ways to give back. So all those mentors have been an amazing, my advisory board members at Sanity Desk and the whole crew we've managed to assemble. So too many people to name, but I hope those ones represent the high points of.
That's great. Thank you, Samuel. Where can people go to learn more about you?
Well, just go to sanitydesk.com. You can sign up for some of our tests online to assess your tech, how healthy is your tech as a business owner, and find out how we can help you fix it. And jamescookmedia.com also. There's some free masterclass we have on storytelling where you can learn how to tell your story online. It's a 2-hour plus free training that I put together on storytelling and how to grow your business with the power of stories.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, Samuel.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.